Hello and welcome to Pershore College Arboricultural Department. My name is Ben Andrews. I'm one of the trainer assessors here, and today we're going to do a run through of some of the criteria expected on chainsaw maintenance and cross-cutting unit. So our first step, obviously we're going to go through the health and safety side of the PPE and what we require to carry out maintenance on a saw. This will vary as we start to use the saw. Obviously we need boots, gloves, helmet, visor, ear protection. But as we stand in the workshop, it's obviously work boots and gloves when handling the chain, and any eye protection needed when carrying out maintenance on the saw. So now I'm just going to run through the safety features of this saw. There's 10 that are on the criteria list that the candidates will need to know. This allows us, we're adhering to legislation, i.e. PURE, Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations 1998. So we'll run through from the beginning. I like to start on the back end of the saw, working in a methodical and systematic manner. This helps identify where they are and what functions they are. On-off switch, easily accessible to the operator. Throttle lockout, this prevents any accidental engagement of the throttle. We can move on then to the rear knuckle guard. Obviously that's going to prevent any contact on a chain derailment. Also on the rear knuckle guard we have decal or stickers giving the relevant information and PPE required. We can continue to move around the saw then and check the AV rubbers or springs, obviously limiting the vibration through the machine. Onto the chain catcher, which is positioned just here. Again, that's going to absorb any energy from the chain derailment. Moving to the front of the saw, we have the scabbard. That's protecting the chain coming into contact with any tools or other equipment. The chain itself, we'll be looking for low kickback characteristics, prevent kickback and obviously coming into contact with the operator. We can then move on to the exhaust system. This prime function here is to obviously reduce the noise and direct the fumes away from the operator. And some models may have a spark arrestor to prevent any carbon or sparks coming out of that exhaust system itself. And finally, we have the chain brake or front knuckle guard combined. We need to check that that's functioning and in good order, safe to use. So these are key requirements that the candidates will be expected to use as per the schedule. And that's the first step before we move on to the maintenance side. So now we've identified the key safety features on the saw, we're going to move on to the maintenance side. Candidates are given at the beginning of each unit an assessment pack from City and Guilds MPTC, which is downloadable on their website, and that will have all the criteria that we need to go through. Part of that is to select the appropriate tools, which I've done, in order to carry out each task and the maintenance required to each part. Okay, so now we're going to carry out the maintenance. I'm going to start by selecting a tool to remove the engine cover. And this will allow me access into the power unit and any relevant components situated there. We're going to start with a spark plug. This provides ignition. Maintenance may include inspection, cleaning, and checking the electrode gap. So start by moving the lead. We can remove the plug. Check the overall condition and colour of the spark plug. The colour is quite important because that's going to give us an indication if the engine is running rich or lean by the colour of the electrode. We can clean any debris from there. We can also then select the electrode gap from the manufacturer's handbook. Check that. Once we're happy with that, we can then replace it. So making sure we don't cross thread that. And make sure that's tight. But take care not to over tighten and damage any of the components on that. And then replace the HT lead. So now we're going to move on to the air filter that's situated on top of the carburetor here in the engine housing. Its function is to prevent debris entering the carburetor and helps maintain the correct air to fuel ratio. And maintenance includes inspection and thorough cleaning. So we're going to, maybe put the choke on, we're going to remove the air filter after cleaning any excess debris from around to ensure that that doesn't allow debris to enter the carburetor. Once we've removed it, it's always a good idea to protect the carburetor with a sponge or some clean paper towel, just to block those ports off, stop anything entering. We can use an airline or a brush to clean the worst off. Airline, we're going to go from the inside out, blowing the material out of the air filter, and we're going to do a visual check for any damage. You can also, if it's quite congested and oily, use hot soapy water and thoroughly dry before replacing. So once we're happy with that, we can replace that back onto the system. Moving on to the chain brake, obviously housed inside here. Its function is to stop the chain, and maintenance may include inspection of the chain brake system, cleaning or replacing. So in order to do that, we're first going to remove the side cover and remove the bar and chain from the power unit. Making sure that the chain brake's not engaged. Lay that out of the way for now. We're going to be checking the brake band for any wear, cracks, fatigue, and thoroughly clean that housing out. Make sure there's no obstructions. Also checking the clutch system while we're there and thoroughly cleaning this side out. Onto the cooling system. Obviously that function is, it prevents the engine from overheating, and maintenance again is going to include inspection and thorough cleaning. We've obviously removed the engine housing previously, so we can check the cylinder head and make sure that's not blocked with debris and sawdust and such like. We can then remove any other covers where appropriate and remove excess debris from around any part there. So now we've removed that, we can look for any debris within the intakes there, giving that a thorough clean, as well as in the internal parts of the fins, again thoroughly cleaning and inspecting. Once we're happy with that, we can replace the side casing. Onto the exhaust system, situated at the front of the saw here. That's primary function is to reduce noise and emissions, and maintenance again will include inspection, security of the nuts and bolts, the spark arrestor, and any removal of any excess residue. So it's a visual check, and with the appropriate tool we're going to check the fixings, make sure they're tight, make sure the spark arrestor's there, it's not blocked, and it's functioning as it should do. onto the clutch and drive system now, situated here. This provides drive to the chain, and maintenance may include inspection, cleaning or removal of the clutch. This is an outboard clutch system on the Husqvarna. Still tend to use an inboard system. We're going to carry on with the outboard, so we may have to use a piston stop or lock to be able to break the clutch system and get to the sprocket. We do this by removing the spark plug. Selecting the appropriate size piston lock, or we can double up some starter cord, something soft that's not going to damage the cylinder or the piston. And that will stop drive to the unit. And then remove the clutch system as per the operator's handbook or manufacturer's handbook, in which case is lock the system off. That's freed our system up, allowing us to move that. That's now given us access to that system. So we've unscrewed the clutch weights. Now we can clean the crank and grease where appropriate. Now the clutch weights are off, we can visually check and clean the rest of the system. Grease the system, the crankshaft and needle cage, like so. That can be done when the system's sealed on an outboard clutch. Next, we're going to check the sprocket, and this drives and pushes the chain along the guide bar, and maintenance may include inspection and replacement due to wear and exceeding the manufacturer's tolerances. So we're just going to check that. Once we're happy with that, we can replace the system. Okay. Moving on to the starter mechanism on the saw. This is incorporated on the outer housing of the cooling mechanism, so we could check this whilst carrying the maintenance out on the cooling system. I've taken one off another saw for demonstration purposes. Obviously we'll clean any debris there. The starter, its main function is to engage the flywheel. Maintenance is going to include visual check and cleaning where necessary. Also checking the correct tension on the cord and any wear on that. So we can check the tension there, making sure it's appropriate. Also making sure we're not over tensioned and damaging the working parts. If we were, or if this snapped or it was wear, we'd need to replace the cord. We can do this by bringing the cord out, and we need to take the tension off that. So we can do that like so. So now our cord is untensioned and ready to replace with a new length of cord. Once we've put that in, we need to retension the system. So we'll locate that. Giving that approximately 5 turns. Hold the tension, bring the cord through, and gently release, and check we have the appropriate tension on the system. Next up, we're going to check the fuel and oil filters situated on the side of the saw. And with the appropriate tool, we're just going to hook these out. And what we're looking for is just a visual inspection and clean and replace where necessary, and make sure that the filter isn't damaged in any way. If we're happy with that, after cleaning, we can replace this into the tank. Likewise, the oil filter in the same way. So we've checked the fuel filter, we can move on to the oil now. Some models will have a filter in a similar manner than that we can hook out. This one's internal, so we're not going to be able to do a lot of maintenance. It's either got to be replaced, or we can drain the oil, dispose of that in the appropriate manner, cleanse the system with a non-flammable degreasing agent, and that's about all we can do on that one. So that's the main maintenance parts of the power unit itself. We've covered the spark plug, colour, that it provides ignition to the system. We've checked the air filter condition, what it does. It controls air to fuel ratio, prevents debris entering the carburetor itself. We've moved on to the drive system, the clutch system, which in this case is an outboard system. We've checked the needle bearings and the sprocket. We've checked the cooling system, we've checked the exhaust. We've gone through then onto fuel filters, oil filters, tensioning of the starter cord, and that now moves us on to the guide bar and cutting system.